Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yep, what's good, original crew, man? We're back on the channel. New Mr. Baller. He been pumping them out, y'all. We trying to stay caught up, but hey. Brody gonna leave us in a second. We got today's video. Cops can explain his 911 call. Another true crime. I'm here for it. I love the true crime joints. I love he went back doing the true crime joints. No more when he had the alien talk or the Bigfoot talk in a while, and I'm glad. Those who've been around, you know. But I'm a very I'm more into the true crime world than the ghost, alien, Bigfoot conversations. Those conversations ain't for me. But, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes they're intriguing to try to kind of dissect and see where the mind goes, you know? Mm-hmm. She like ghost stories. She like the ghost joints. You like the aliens?
No. I like ghosts. I mean, well, I don't like it. I don't dislike it. But I'm more of a true crime type of...
Yeah. The ghost joint's cool. Bigfoot, not so much. The aliens, I can get jiggy with you to a point with that because do I believe humans is the only planet? Are we the only ones that got active life and all of everything? You believe that? Or do you believe there's some sort of form of life somewhere else?
Never thought about it. I did see a UFO once.
Oh, Lord Jesus, not this again. Hey! Make sure you check out those links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go. If you want to first support, all you got to do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video,
like it in with a thumbs up.
Y'all who be around and actually watch almost every video, y'all know what she's talking about. You might have forgot, but she thought the aliens was about to abduct her one night.
No,
Not last night, but one night.
No, I did.
Yeah, you did, because you said, I swear there was aliens right there, and they were just suffering. And
I didn't think they was about to take me.
Probably they finna take me to my people.
Okay, let's get into this video.
All right, let's check it out. Let's see what's about. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm going to tell you the story of one of the most talked about mysteries on the internet. And I think part of the reason this story is so mysterious and so intriguing is because there's this really unsettling audio recording that sort of confounds the whole mystery and really forces you to take a stance about what you think really happened. And so I'm going to tell you the story, and towards the end, I'm gonna play you that recording, and you can decide what you think really happened. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every week. You heard me right. We're going back to the old ways, up to 4 new uploads every week on YouTube, for real. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to clean the dishes for the like button. But instead of cleaning them, just smash all their dishes on the ground. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. At 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, 2013, a man named Kyle Lawson was asleep in his bedroom with his wife at their home in San Angelo, Texas, when his cell phone rang and it woke him up. Kyle looked at the caller ID and saw that the call was coming in from his 26-year-old brother, Brandon. And so, Kyle picked it up, but before he could even say hello, his brother said he needed help. And then he launched into this big story that really sounded completely insane. He told Kyle he was currently driving north on Highway 277, which is this totally desolate 2-lane country road that runs through West Texas, and that 3 men were chasing Brandon. And on top of that, Brandon told his brother that, he's trying to get away from these men, but his truck was about to run out of gas. And so what he wanted Kyle to do was to, right now in the middle of the night, come meet him secretly to hand off a gas tank so Brandon could officially escape these 3 men. But as Kyle listened to this, he was not really...
That don't fucking make sense. If you running actively trying to escape 3 people, how can I be able to sneak you a gas tank?
That's not even my concern. My thing is, why would I just sneak you a gas tank to put the gas in the car when I could just come and pick you up? You're not asking him to come pick you up
You tell
or
him
come save you
sneak
from.
you a gas.
Yeah. Okay.
That don't make sense.
Could officially escape these 3 men. But as Kyle listened to this, he was not really actually concerned, at least in terms of Brandon being in any sort of real danger with regards to these 3 men that were chasing him. In reality, Kyle's reaction to this was just being so annoyed at Brandon. Because after hearing this story, this frantic story Brandon's telling him in the middle of the night, he was sure that really there were no 3 men, that instead his brother Brandon was just high again, and he was hallucinating. He was basically having an episode that was substance-induced. So Brandon had a history of methamphetamine use. He'd been clean for the last 6 months or so, and he'd been working on, being a better partner to his fiancée, Ladessa, and also a better father to his 4 children. But just 2 days ago, Brandon had also called Kyle, but it had been to ask Kyle if he knew where he could get some drugs. Now, Kyle did not immediately say, oh, here's where you go to get drugs. Instead, he tried to tell Brandon, don't do it. You should not get high. You're clean. You're doing good. But he was pretty sure Brandon had not listened, because ever since that phone call, even though Kyle didn't give him any, resources for drugs, Brandon must have gone and gotten drugs anyways, because his behavior had just been completely crazy in general. In fact, right now, Kyle knew from having spoken to his parents earlier that the whole reason Brandon was even driving on Highway 277 right now was because he got into a big fight with his fiancée and was supposed to be going to his parents' house to chill out. He was basically going to time out for bad behavior. That's why he was out right now. Now, Kyle knew Brandon was very likely high, and so this was not going to be a good time to reason with Brandon and tell him to, just come home or just go to your parents' house because, there's no such thing as these 3 men. You're just high. He's not going to listen to that. So instead, Kyle just focused on trying to calm Brandon down because, again, Kyle is not thinking Brandon is actually in danger. He's thinking this is just a hallucination. But as Kyle tried to do that, Brandon did not calm down. He got more and more anxious, and he's continuing to talk about these 3 men that are gaining on him. And finally, Kyle just said, dude, Brandon, have you relapsed? Is that what's going on here? But as Kyle expected, Brandon swore up and down that he was not high, and he just kept on begging Kyle to come help him fast before these men caught up to him, come give me the gas I need so I can escape, come on, man. At this point, Kyle felt like there was no point even talking to Brandon, and in some ways, he just wanted to hang up and forget about this whole thing. This was crazy. He has his own life and his own responsibilities. He shouldn't be babysitting his younger brother. But at the same time, Kyle was very close with his brother. Even if, he resented it, he did love his brother very much. And even though he did feel like there is no imminent danger here other than maybe Brandon to himself, Kyle decided, you know what? I'm just gonna go out on Highway 277. I'm gonna find Brandon and just get him back home. So he told Brandon he'd be right there, and then he hung up. About 45 minutes later, Kyle drove north on Highway 277 along with his wife in his passenger seat and their 4-year-old son in the back. Kyle's wife had not wanted him to be out in the middle of the night dealing with his crazy brother all alone, so she'd insisted that she and their son come along. And so as Kyle drove down the road, he kept an eye out for Brandon's truck. Now, to set the scene for you, this really is like a desolate highway. There's no real traffic, and really in either direction, it's just kind of open plains and some shrubs and small trees. This is a big, wide open area. It's pretty easy to see way out in front of you. And so he's got a great view, even though it's nighttime, but he can't see any vehicles. There's no truck, there's nothing. His brother is nowhere to be seen. But Kyle just kept on driving and kept on looking out. He was even just sort of looking out into the fields in case, his brother had veered off the road somewhere, which seemed entirely possible. But eventually, after driving for some time, way up ahead, sort of parked half on the road, half off, was a truck. Its lights were off, it's just sitting there. It's not even idling, it's clearly turned off. But as Kyle got closer, he realized it was Brandon's truck, so he had found Brandon. And so Kyle, he pulls over to the opposite side of the road, he parks his car, and he tells his wife and his son to stay in the car, and he's gonna go talk to Brandon, who at this point Kyle is assuming is sitting in his truck, waiting for Kyle. And also keep in mind, at this point, Kyle's thinking, well, there's nobody else out here. There's no 3 men chasing my brother. He's probably just sitting here, high as can be, and I'm gonna talk to him, and he's just gonna go home, and we're gonna move past this. But when Kyle walked over to the vehicle, there was nobody inside of it. Brandon's gone. And he's thinking to himself, this really doesn't make any sense, because on the ride to the truck, as they were on Highway 277, Brandon kept repeatedly calling Kyle over and over and over again, being like, come on, you gotta hurry up, you gotta get here. They're gaining on me like I'm in trouble. Bring that gasoline, you gotta get here. And now that he's here, he's finally reached clearly Brandon's truck. It's right here, and Brandon's gone. He's gone from his truck. He didn't tell him that on the phone. Like, where is he? What's going on here? And so Kyle, he's like looking under the vehicle. He's searching the vehicle now for his brother, which is totally crazy. Like, what's his brother doing here? But as he's searching the vehicle for his brother and looking around the area for his brother, Kyle's phone rings, and it's Brandon. And so Kyle, who at this point is feeling really annoyed, he answers the phone and he's like, Brandon, where are you? And Brandon goes, bro, I'm right here. And Kyle's like, no, you're not. Like, I don't see you. There's no one here. Your truck is here. You're not here. But just then, Kyle looked out and there was a car coming towards him. So he saw the headlights and he realized it was a cop car. And so he's on the phone with Brandon. He's looking out at this cop car that's coming up this road towards him and clearly slowing down. Like the police officer is going to stop and talk to Kyle, presumably. And so as this cop car is coming in and slowing down right in front of him, Brandon on the phone says to Kyle, run away from that cop. Now think about this. That meant Brandon had to be somewhere nearby because he can clearly see the cop car approaching Kyle. He's watching the scene. Even though Kyle has not found his brother, Brandon is clearly actually nearby. But Kyle, he's sort of quickly interpreting this and he's thinking, like, where is Brandon? Because he's looking out and it's just open fields in either direction on either side of this highway. It's like this barren wasteland out in the middle of Texas. Like, where is he hiding? There's nowhere to hide. There's a couple of shrubs and really small trees sort of off in the distance, but like there's really nowhere to hide. So where is Brandon? And Kyle, he's just feeling furious at this point. Confused, but furious. It's like, what are you doing, Brandon? Like, he knew the reason Brandon wanted Kyle to run also is because Brandon had an active warrant out for his arrest that had to do with a drug charge. And so he's just protecting himself, like, don't get involved with the police, like, keep me out of it. And it's like, Kyle, he's already out here in the middle of the night doing this crap for his brother who's completely off his rocker. Like, he was so annoyed, but again, it's like, what does he even do? He has no idea where Brandon is. And so Kyle, he was about to say something to Brandon to demand, where are you? Come out here. But Brandon hung up. Now, by this point, the police officer had arrived on scene. He had parked his car and he walked over to Kyle, who now is standing right next to his brother's vehicle. He's put his phone back in his pocket. And the officer, when he got close enough, he introduced himself as Deputy Neal of the Coke County Sheriff's Department. And he told Kyle that he was responding to a 911 call from a trucker about a stranded driver on the road. And so he asked Kyle if maybe that was him. Is this your truck? Are you the stranded driver? Pointing to Brandon's truck. But Kyle said no, it was not his. It belonged to his brother. But despite how much he really wished he could say the truth, he wanted to protect his brother. So he couldn't tell the deputy that, well, the reason my brother left his car here is because he's probably high on meth and he's somewhere nearby hiding. And also he has a warrant out for his arrest. So instead, Kyle said, well, I think he went off to get some gas because he called me and he said he had run out of gas, so he parked his car here. So he probably has walked on and I just got here. Is it okay with you if I get back in the car with my wife and son and just drive up and down the road here to find Brandon? Because I'm sure he's fine, but he called me to help get him gas. So do you mind if I do that? And surprisingly, the deputy was like, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. And so Kyle, he got right back into his car with his wife and his son, and he did fire up his car and he drove farther down the highway. And as he did, he kept looking over his shoulder to see what the cop was gonna do. And the cop was just still parked next to Brandon's car. And eventually, when Kyle drove far enough that he knew the cop couldn't see him anymore, he pulled over to the side of the road and he began really angrily calling his brother over and over and over again to get him back on the phone. But Brandon never answered the calls. And so at this point, Kyle has no idea what's going on with Brandon. I mean, he didn't before, but now especially, he's out of contact with his brother. And so Kyle and his family would sit there for a little bit longer, like continuing to try to get in touch with Brandon, but to no end. And eventually, Kyle's 4-year-old son began crying and complaining because it's so late and he's tired. And Kyle's wife is tired. It's 2 a.m. And Kyle, he's just so over it. He's like, you know what? Brandon is an adult. I tried to come out here and get him out of this mess, but if he doesn't want to be in touch with me and he wants to hide off the side of the highway, that's on him. I'm taking my family and I'm going home. And so that's what he did. He turned around, he drove right back the way he came, and he actually passed by his brother's truck that was still there, so Brandon clearly is still in hiding. And standing next to his brother's truck is still Deputy Neil. He presumably was waiting for Brandon to show back up. He drove right past them, went back to his home, and they went to bed. And he figured, you know what, tomorrow I will likely hear from Brandon and he'll tell me some crazy story explaining what really happened, but you know what, whatever, that's on him. Not long after Kyle had driven past Deputy Neil on his way back home, Neil decided, you know what, I'm not just gonna sit here all night waiting for Brandon. He had searched Brandon's truck and there was nothing concerning inside of it. There was, no phone, no wallet, no keys, things that people would not leave behind if they ran out of gas and decided to go walk to get gas. So it seemed very much like that is what happened. Brandon had pulled his car over, gotten out, and begun the walk. And then his brother showed up and the whole thing was playing out here. And so Neil figured, okay, well, I have other calls to go to. It doesn't seem like this is a huge emergency. And so he just reached inside the truck, he turned on the hazard lights, then he locked all the doors and shut them. And then he got in his own vehicle and he took off because again, he had other calls to attend to that night. The next morning around 8 a.m., Deputy Neil was back out on Highway 277 just to make sure Brandon had eventually come back and claimed his truck. But no, the truck was still sitting there, hazards on. Now, at this point, Deputy Neil was starting to get a bit concerned about Brandon because, he's out on foot, walking to get gas for his truck. And even though it seemed like the risk was sort of low for him, it is possible something could have happened to him. And that's why he had not come back to his truck. Maybe he was hit by a car or, got lost or something. Who knows? Anything could have happened. Or, maybe Brandon decided not to claim his truck yet. Maybe he just went home and he's gonna get it later. But regardless, it just seemed like Neil really had to go follow up personally with Brandon, just to make sure he was okay. And so Neil drove back to the sheriff's department to see if he could find the contact information for Brandon. But when he walked in the door, he didn't have any time to do any digging because another employee told him that while he was out, the department had gotten a call from Brandon's fiancée, Ledessa. And Ledessa had given them a very different story than the one Brandon's brother, Kyle, had told Neil the night before. According to Ledessa, she and Brandon had been fighting for the past few days. And last night, so on the night that this whole truck thing happened, Brandon was supposed to be on his way to his parents' house to cool off from the fight he was having with Ledessa. But he never arrived at his parents' house, and he never came back to Ledessa's house. And so Brandon was totally unaccounted for. And on top of that, nobody could get in touch with Brandon. They were calling and texting him, no response. After hearing this, Deputy Neil was surprised and also pretty angry because clearly Brandon's brother Kyle had acted like everything was totally fine the night before, but that had to have been a lie, because Ledessa is saying this totally different story. And so the first thing Neil did is he went and spoke to Kyle and also to the rest of Brandon's family to get the story straight here. And very quickly, it became clear to Deputy Neil that any omissions or even lies about what had happened exactly on the night that Kyle went missing were not because the family was hiding something. They were kind of trying to protect Brandon, but it was because they didn't understand how serious this situation really was. And so now that Brandon really was missing and nobody knew what happened to him, the family was very forthright that they really didn't know what had happened to him and that yes, maybe he was on drugs, we don't know, but he really is missing and you gotta go look for him. And so that's what Neil did. Over the next 4 days, there was this huge search that Neil led all around Highway 277, where the center of the search was where Brandon's truck had been found. But despite using canines and helicopters and these huge search teams, some of which had thermal cameras which would allow you to see body heat, despite covering this vast area all around where Brandon clearly had been, there was absolutely no sign of him. And they also spoke to the homeowners and the property owners sort of roughly in the area to see if maybe they had seen something strange, maybe seen Brandon or those 3 men that apparently had been chasing him on the night he went missing, but nobody had seen anything. And so basically, Brandon was definitely not here. And there was no sign he had been here other than his truck. That was it. And so Deputy Neal and the rest of the authorities who were involved in the search ultimately came to the conclusion that based on the fact that Brandon had clearly been fighting with his fiancée, that he had an active warrant out for his arrest, and that he had not been seen in days, and there was no sign of him anywhere, nothing, that what must have happened here is Brandon fled. That he's not here because he chose not to be here. That he was never in any danger. He fled the area, and looking here is going to do nothing. We basically have to wait for Brandon to show up at some point. And so for the most part, this seemed like a pretty open and shut case. Until Brandon's fiancée, Ledessa, came into the station in person with a bombshell. On August 13th, 2013, so 4 days after Brandon went missing, this is right around the time the search has been called off, the officer on duty at the Coke County Sheriff's Department sat across from Ledessa. And Ledessa looked extremely upset. And she said that she'd gotten so worried about Brandon that she'd started searching through their cell phone records. And she had found something really concerning. She pulled out a piece of paper and she handed it to the officer, and she pointed at a specific section. And this officer, he realized quickly that this was a printed out copy of Brandon's call logs. And what Ledessa was pointing to was a call that Brandon had made at 12:50 a.m. on the night he disappeared. In between a flurry of calls to Kyle and also to Kyle's wife, Brandon had also placed a call to 911. Ledessa told the officer that the fact that Brandon himself had called 911 actually terrified her, because Brandon would have done practically anything to avoid the police. He was terrified of the police. In fact, she knew from talking to Kyle that Brandon had even suggested to him that he should run from the police on the night he went missing when he saw the cop approaching him. And so she said, look, like he would only ever call the police if he truly had to. But she's like, why then, after calling the police, did he presumably run away? It just doesn't make any sense. And all of this came as a total surprise to this officer and to the sheriff's department. Because until this moment, the belief had been that a trucker had called 911 about a stranded driver. And that was how Deputy Neal got involved, and really this whole thing started. But nobody knew there had also been this other 911 call from Brandon himself. The 911 dispatch in the area was tiny, underfunded, and understaffed. And at some point, someone must have just dropped the ball when it came to informing the sheriff's department about Brandon's 911 call, because they really didn't know about it. But now that they did, they needed to hear that call for themselves. The sheriff's department would contact that 911 dispatch, and they would send them an audio recording of Brandon's call. And when they listened to it, they were shocked. Because one, Brandon 100% sounded like he was in imminent danger. This was not like a low stakes call from a stranded driver. This was someone who thought they were in real peril here. And then two, if you listen closely, you can hear the sound of somebody else's voice in the background on Brandon's side of the call shortly before it cuts out.
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. The state just pushed some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got chasing to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me.
I'm not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
Got the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? Hello? Hello?
And so at this point, authorities are thinking,
You need to rehear it.
Sure.
Because I know you want me to, like, if you don't want me to, I don't have to.
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it back so you can hear it. Because I just know how
Let me
you
hear
are.
it again.
All right.
You don't have to take it all the way back. Or you can.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. The state just pushed some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got chasing to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me one
I'm
more.
not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello?
Did he say something about car?
Hello? Hello?
And so at this point, authorities are thinking, okay, this doesn't necessarily seem like this is just a disappearance. This might be a murder. I mean, they didn't have a body, but the idea that there's another voice and he's talking about being chased through the woods and there's these men coming after him, I mean, this audio recording gave a lot of legitimacy to that. And so the search, which had just ended, was quickly resumed and expanded dramatically. And for the next year, with all these additional resources being poured in, there was this massive effort to find Brandon Lawson. But they didn't find him. There was no other sign of him. He was just completely gone. Wow. They looked everywhere around that highway 277, all over the place near where his truck was. There was no evidence. He was just gone. And so ultimately, Brandon's case went cold. And for the most part, authorities just kind of moved on. But Brandon's family did not move on. His fiancée, Ladessa, would go on to hire 2 private detectives, and they would both conduct these big searches multiple times over around the area where Brandon left his truck and also across the state. But they too also just came up empty. And as the years passed by without answers, Brandon's disappearance captured more people's attention, and it started being featured on TV shows and podcasts. People had all kinds of theories about what had happened. You know, maybe Brandon really was just high and hallucinating, and he wandered off somewhere and got attacked by wild animals. Or maybe he really was being chased by these 3 men, and they kidnapped or killed him, and maybe that voice you hear on the recording was one of those 3 men. Or maybe he really had just fled the area on purpose, like the sheriff's department originally thought. Nobody really knew. And so for 9 years, Brandon's case was full of questions and 0 answers. But then, in January of 2022, a small group of volunteers went out to Highway 277 to the area where Brandon had disappeared, which had been searched so many times over. They, this small group of volunteers, would make the biggest breakthrough in Brandon's case in nearly a decade. While they were combing through this field off the side of the highway, again, a field that had been searched numerous times by hundreds and hundreds of people, these volunteers came across an old pair of shorts and pieces of 2 white shoes. They called the sheriff's department, and very quickly, a team of deputies arrived and cordoned off the area, and they continued the search. And in that same field, not far from the shorts and the shoes, they found a fragment of a human skull. And DNA testing confirmed the skull fragment belonged to Brandon Lawson. Wow. Now, you would think that finding some of Brandon's remains would answer at least some of the questions about his disappearance, but actually, it just made the whole thing more baffling, because the area where Brandon's skull was found was right near his truck. It had been searched so many times. There were thermal cameras and canines and helicopters and hundreds of searchers, and nobody found it? Remember, off the side of the highway, this is not some thick forest. It is like this huge, flat field in West Texas with nothing but grass and short cactus plants and scattered trees. Like, this is an easy place to find stuff. Yet this skull fragment was not found, nor were the shorts or the shoes. It just seems so improbable. So where does that leave us? Well, we basically have 2 options here. Option 1 is, despite the enormous manpower, the helicopters, canine units, the thermal cameras that were used, the hundreds of volunteers and searchers that combed this area for years, either they just didn't see the grown man in bright white sneakers who was in this barren strip of West Texas where it's easy to see anything, they just didn't see him. So that's option 1. Or 2, he wasn't there. Brandon was not in the search area when they were looking for him. He was somewhere else. But if you believe option 2, the question becomes, well, where was Brandon? Where was he? Why did he call 911 and then run away and go somewhere else? Why? Where was he? And then also, even if you answer that, how did his skull fragment and his clothes wind up back in the search area 9 years later? It is one of the most profound mysteries on the internet, and to this day, we still don't have a good answer.
Yeah. That was.
That was up for debate on any side. However you want to call it, you can call it. I just know me and C literally just was talking about this, right? With searches. And on some real spill, it's not impossible for people to overlook people with searching. We literally were just talking about this and how people like, oh yeah, I knew I searched right there, and they literally didn't search right there. They went in the vicinity, but didn't. When I say searches, should like every inch should be checked. Every inch. And I don't mean just by eyes. I mean by physically going there, because your eyes might.
But with everything that they use, you would think that.
But also, if he's dead, thermal is not going to pick up because he's not producing body heat.
But they also had dogs. They also had people. They had all of this stuff. So and I also need to know, like, I really would like to know exactly how it looked, like the actual like land, like how it actually looked, like how flat was it?
This probably is the area, because just based off of this probably is the area. Like, it's flat, but but how?
If for 9 years.
But hold on. Let me go right
ahead.
here. Right, his brother called him.
And he answered.
He was talking to his brother on the phone.
And he seen the the police car.
Hold on, let me finish.
Go ahead.
Why did he verbally scream out or came running to his brother? Why only on the phone he said, "I'm right here"? And then he had to be in range to a point to see the cop car. But that doesn't mean he had to be close in range. Had to be, because it is flat plains, though.
I will say that is kind of strange, especially if he called 911 for help. I don't know. Even he seen it was a police car, for him to even tell his brother to run away. You would think that he'd run towards, your brother's here. The cop is here. Then he
said, "I'm right here." Because what time was it when his brother made it out there?
I'm not sure. Anywhere between 12-ish. Well, he called it 12:30, so anywhere between, like, I guess 12:45 and 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
And it's probably around 12. Or also, I ain't gonna hold you. You can't put things when it comes down to.
I don't know. That is just strange. It's just strange that they searched so many times, even with LaDessa hiring a PI and them searching and extending the search beyond just this area.
But they don't have all the resources and tools that are like everybody.
For no one to find him, have no signs of anything. For his just shoes, a shirt, and his skull to end up back in this area beside his truck, or where his truck once was, or whatever. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I am on the mindset that it's a possibility that I don't think he was murdered there. I don't think he was there that night or in that area at the time when they were searching. I don't believe that. I do believe he was murdered somewhere else. And this is it's a two lane highway. It looked deserted at times, not heavily traveled. In the middle of the night, anybody could have came back and dropped his body off years later. That does happen. Cause that kind of reminds me of similarly to the Holly Bobo when she went missing. When she went missing, she was in an area, right? When they kidnapped her, abducted her, and all that, and then eventually they discarded her remains elsewhere. But when everybody was looking for her, she was held somewhere else. You know?
Yeah. And
then also they kind of give me that eerie thought of another situation. Back when Lorenzen Wright, when he was being gunned down, how he called 911, and when he called, he was literally actively running away from his assailant. they picked up the phone, but they never, and he had an interacting with the 911 operators. You could hear the gunshots, but they never went and checked on the situation. And so, a situation like this, balls all dropped. That should have been an immediate go check, see what's going on out there in that area, especially in 2013. Like, if this was 1963, yeah, shorthanded. It's 2013. You know what I mean? Like, so what are you leaning towards? Like,
I have no clue. Like I said, it's strange.
do you
I have
believe?
no,
I'm saying, do you believe he was there this whole time, or do you think he was elsewhere? Where's your mind leading?
honestly, I don't know. If he was there the entire time, I don't see how y'all missed a grown man. Like he said, if the land is as flat as it is, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere. So for me, for me, just looking at it, I'm just thinking maybe he wasn't there the entire time. Maybe someone did do something to him and came back. It makes no sense to. I mean, well, I guess people would do something crazy like that, but I find it kind of risky to come and dump his body like back like in the area. Like that makes no sense. But I guess if someone know that, hey, this area has already been searched 9 times out of 10, maybe they won't come back to this area to search again. Then they probably would dump. But nothing makes sense. The entire nothing makes sense. Even from him calling his brother and seeing everything, like that doesn't make sense to me. And if he was being like chased at the time, like when he made the 911 call, where are the people now? These 3 men or this car that's chasing him.
Well, I'll say this: is it a possibility he owned owed a outstanding debt since he was on drugs? That's a possibility. It is kind of brushes and stuff out here, though. Like, I'm just.
That's
trying
why
to
I
look
said
at the
I
area.
need to see exactly. And I thought about that. Maybe, when he mentioned like the drugs and stuff, I was like, maybe he did. But I'm just saying, where was these people at the time that the police was here and his brother was here? Like, did they go far down the street? But then I'm pretty sure your brother would have been like, hey, I seen this vehicle. And that kind of was, look,
Unless
I don't
they
know.
turned their lights off.
Unless it was something like that. Maybe he kind of like ducked off a little bit. It's late. You just trying to get home. So you're not really being, looking out for other vehicles and stuff like that. And then once the deputy left and stuff, now he's just out here alone.
But that also tells me the deputy had to, because if he made the call at 12:50, that means the deputy had to leave almost immediately after Kyle left. That was it tells me. But for him to say, hey, I'm right here. If you see me, say something. That's what I would think, like, if I see you, if I could see you, hey, Kyle, I'm right here. Unless he didn't want Kyle involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it still didn't make sense to you say, hey, just bring me some gas and put some gas in my truck, like, so I can put some gas in my truck and keep going. Why not, hey, come pick me up? I'm stranded.
That's what I said earlier.
Like, that would make more sense to, come on, Kyle, unless he know his family don't want anything to do with him, and he like, but they still.
Well, that wouldn't make sense because he was on his way to his parents' house.
I'm saying, I'm saying like his brother, because obviously his brother.
I'm pretty sure, like, if that's the first person you call when you in danger, then and he already said him and his brother was close, so.
Why not just ask Kyle to come pick him up? Why just ask for gas? Because that don't make sense. A lot of stuff don't make sense, though.
Yeah, I just hate that it happened. If he was out there, which more than likely he wasn't, I just hate he was out there alone. I hate that this happened, and I hate that the family has no answers. Like they have.
So you saying let me ask you this. So you saying you don't see how somebody could have brought his body back and just threw him out?
I didn't say I don't see how. I can see how that could be, but I said it would be risky. But also, if this is a highway that's not really traveled all the time, then it will make sense for someone to do it, especially since they probably know, hey, they were out here searching this area. Now they have called it off, so no one is like actively looking anymore for him. Then,
because it had been what 9 years later.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly at what point that they dumped his body back out.
And he was
here.
just out and exposed open. So
and they only found the skull, right?
Skull,
they didn't even find like the whole body.
And they found clothing. What's the clothes?
Shoes and a shirt. Shorts and
how was
it shorts and shoes?
Shorts and shoes.
Yeah, sorry.
But was there any legs? What you just said? They just said skull. That's bizarre to me. And shoes and the pants were just a skull. I feel like there would be a shirt. There would be something. It wouldn't just be shoe. And what was the conditions of the shirt and shoes?
Shorts and shoes.
I mean, shorts and shoes.
I guess you say shirt now.
Yeah. What is the condition? Also, did they have dirt like they possibly been buried?
Or other things. Did they have blood? Did they have any other, like, just anything?
Did the skull have a gunshot? Because if it had a gunshot to the...
Well, 9 times out of 10...
We don't know.
We won't know. We don't even know if it was the entire... was it just partial? Was it the entire skull? We don't even really have that. Just... So, short shoes, if you spot these objects, do not touch.
But also,
so that's what...
he had a phone. His phone would still be out there, too, if his body had always been out there, and this is where he was.
Were y'all able to ping the last, location of...
They could have did that in 2013, but I don't feel like they were doing that like that in 2013.
I'm just saying, in a case like this, I'm going to exhaust all... at least everything. We're using our resources.
Man, they got ready to give up until the wife got cell phone records. So
he had on a yellow shirt with camo shorts and white shoes. Air Max.
Where you see that at?
Under missing.
Oh, a yellow shirt with camo shorts and white shoes. And a Verizon Droid Razor. Because my thing is, where's the phone? Because obviously he had the phone on him. Anybody go out there with a metal detector and wand to see if you got can pick up a cell phone? Because that phone will still be out there.
Yeah.
That gives me every notion that no, he wasn't out there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's super strange, but definitely rest in peace to Brandon. Though. Yeah. I hate that the family don't really have many answers, if any at all. That sucks. But yeah, definitely rest in peace to Brandon.
Y'all spend what's up, man. Let us know y'all thoughts about it for us in the comments down below. But until next time, y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ New Kid. This is
Sierra Nicole.
We are.
Kid and C.
We are.
No time to kick it, got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar.